So Speedsters, we are in for a treat with The Flash's 100th episode because Zoom, S.T.A.R, and Reverse Flash are all returning next week and it looks incredible. We need to break this trailer down. How's it going, Speedsters? Hope you're all doing well. As if you couldn't tell, I am freaking out a little bit right now because of the trailer for next week's mid-season finale and 100th episode of The Flash. What's past is prologue. So what I'm going to do straight away is shut up so you guys can see this trailer for yourselves, and then we'll break down the specifics of it because boy is there a lot to talk about. So roll the trailer.
Go back to the past to defeat Cicada in the future.
If I do this, I'm going back to some crazy time. S.T.A.R, done. Zoom.
And who is this?
I knew we shouldn't have done this.
Things just got a lot more complicated.
I knew we shouldn't have done this.
Now this is the synopsis for next week's episode as well. I've read this out a few times in previous videos, but let's just read it out once more so we can get a little bit more context as to what is going on in the next episode. In the 100th episode, Barry and Team Flash come up with a plan to stop Cicada. However, the plan calls for Barry and Nora to travel back in time to gather some key necessities. However, Barry hesitates, concerned about his daughter seeing certain parts of his life. Meanwhile, Sherloque takes his concerns about Nora to Iris, and Caitlin turns up a key asset in the fight against Cicada. Now, is it just me, or was that trailer just absolutely crazy? I think the thing we're most looking forward to is all of those villainous speedsters returning. We've got Zoom, we've got S.T.A.R, and we've got the Reverse Flash. But before this, we knew that Zoom was returning because Tony Todd confirmed it. He's the voice of Zoom. But we didn't know that Teddy Sears was returning because in this trailer we do see him, so that is going to be incredibly cool to see an actual unmasked version of Zoom. I think a lot of us assumed that it would just be a stunt double in the Zoom costume with Tony Todd's voice, which would have been cool still, but this is just the icing on the cake with Teddy Sears returning as well. Now in this trailer we actually see that Sherloque has come up with the idea, at least I'm assuming it's him, because he's saying that go back to the past to stop Cicada in the future, and the synopsis points out that Nora and Barry have to travel back to the past to gather some key necessities. Now, what are these key necessities? I have been over this in another video going over the promo photos for this episode, but the very interesting thing that Barry is holding in the promo photos, and we actually get a good shot of it in this trailer as well, is actually the Speed Force transmitter prop that Zoom obviously used to take Barry's speed. If you guys remember, Harry collected it, Barry was running on that treadmill, and then Zoom injected himself, and then he went crazy with Speed Force. For some reason, they're using that device. And what we know is that they're going to get key necessities. So are they really just going to jab previous speedsters to get more speed? I don't know what it is yet, but all we can attribute it down to is that they've got the Speed Force transmitter device. It could serve a different purpose than just stealing Speed Force, but you have to think, well, then why is Barry revisiting previous speedsters? That is still the number one question I have, because I just don't believe that he's going to be like, yep, jab, just going to borrow a little bit of speed. How would that even serve the purpose anyway in the future when the dagger dampens the Flash's powers, unless he's going to inject himself after it's dampened? I don't know. I just find that hard to believe. So I'd love to know your thoughts down in the comments below. What is Barry doing with the Speed Force transmitter prop or device? Could it serve a different purpose? And do you think that he needs to use this device on the previous speedster villains? Now, the very beginning clips of the trailer are very fascinating as well. I don't know if we're exactly going to go back to the times that you're seeing on screen right now. For example, we see Weather Wizard's creation. We see Ronnie kind of like becoming Firestorm at the Particle Accelerator. We see the Flash's creation. We know as well that the Allen house is going to be in this episode. So, you know, some people are theorizing, are we going to see Henry Allen when they're traveling back to see Zoom? And is Nora going to have to witness that? I mean, after all, Barry does hesitate, as the synopsis states, because Barry says, if I do this, we're going to go back to some crazy times. And obviously he doesn't want Nora to see the worst parts of his life with the Reverse Flash season 1, all the terrible things Zoom did in season 2, and what Barry is capable of becoming if something happens to Iris in season 3, because we've got S.T.A.R as well, and I wasn't sure if they were actually going to include S.T.A.R because of all of the timey-wimey stuff. Yet that is still happening, and she's going to see a crazy ass version of her father. That's going to be some deep deep stuff. Now, what I'm also very incredibly excited for is that we now know that Cicada knows kind of who Barry is and that he's investigating him. And we know that Barry and Team Flash know who Orlin is now and that he's Cicada. And we even see in this clip here that Cicada's looking out the window of his house. I'm assuming that it is his house. And we see that Barry is waiting there outside. Now, maybe this is after they've traveled back in time and he's got the key necessities, but I'm also thinking that this might not be his house, but it might just be outside the hospital, because we know that there's going to be some kind of showdown this episode between Vibe, Killer Frost, Flash, Nora, and Cicada outside the hospital. So it looks like Cicada's going to go full on the ham to, I guess, protect Grace, but it's not like Team Flash are going to try and hurt Grace anyway. But either way, I can't wait for that showdown in the episode, and it looks like this moment might be around that time. Now, after the voiceover of Barry saying that he's going to be going back to some crazy times, we see the reaction from Team Flash, and Ralph's face, I think, describes all of our faces. But anyway, we hear Barry talk about Thorn, Zoom, Savitar, and we see the old Eobard Thorn Wells, or Wellsabard, most famously known as. We see Zoom with the exact same moment I was talking about earlier, getting injected with Speed Force. Is that a coincidence? I'm not sure. And then we actually see a clip from Barry and Nora actually having already gone back in time and talking to Teddy Sears Zoom. And I think that the conversation must go along the lines of the fact that, hey, there's this crazy ass villain in the future. I'm not going to tell you how this ends up with you and me in season 2. But I'm just saying, if you ever want to win this and you want to go up and you want to rule Central City or like rule worlds or whatever your motive was, Zoom, back in season 2, eventually Cicada's going to rise. So trust me, you're going to want to help me out now so I can stop him in the future. So if you happen to win season 2, which you don't, by the way, you won't have to deal with Cicada. So maybe, I know that was a bit complicated to understand from my perspective, but maybe that is how it's going to kind of be. And that is why the villains might see interest in helping Barry and Nora, because obviously they don't want to deal with a pain in their ass in the future, which is Cicada. But little do they know that they're not going to win anyway, because Barry's going to defeat them as of each season they're in. So he would beat Thorn, end of season 1, even though Thorn will always come back somewhere or another. He will beat Zoom in season 2, but I can't wait anyway. This scene looks very exciting because Zoom is just quite literally like, so who is this? And Barry is going to have to either tell him, yeah, that's my daughter, or that's just a friend. I don't think he's going to say it's his daughter, because that would just be living bait for any speedster villain of the Flash. We see how terrified Nora is, and this must be extremely fascinating for her, because if there's one thing that we know Nora has been doing in the future her whole life, is going in the Flash Museum. She's seen the suit of Zoom, albeit probably a glorified Flash version of what actually happened from what we learned of the most recent episode, where the Flash Museum doesn't detail all the people that have been lost, all the things that Barry has had to actually sacrifice. But now she is witnessing not just the suit from the Flash Museum, but the villain himself. So I can't wait for this moment. And the same applies to Thorn and Savitar as well. Believe it or not, I actually really hope we get to see pancaked face evil Savitar Barry, just because if he speaks to Nora, that will be a very interesting scene. Other very fast clips that were played was the destruction of Savitar. We see Flash vibrate in the armor, and that destroys the Savitar armor. We see Cisco writing on the whiteboard with some various early dates, so maybe a scene from season 1 or 2. I really can't remember exactly where this is from though. I think this is H.R. Wells with the camera from season 3. I could be wrong there. We see the scene where Iris shot evil Savitar Barry from season 3. We get a really cool shot of Cicada here in his mask. Savitar running through the woods. If you guys remember, I think this is the scene where Jay Garrick, Barry, and I don't think there was another speedster, maybe it was Wally or maybe it was Jesse, but they were all chasing after Savitar in this particular scene. And this is the actual image we saw of Barry in that alleyway with the Speed Force transmitter. So that is very interesting. This is that same prop that they used in that Zoom episode. But very interestingly, in the same alleyway, we see the boots of a very familiar speedster. And I'm betting, well, I could be wrong here, but it's probably the case that Barry knocks whatever season Barry this is out, a previous newbie Barry out behind some dumpsters. And it is definitely the same alleyway where he had the Speed Force transmitter prop. So what is he going to do with that? Is he going to like stab Barry with it and it's going to like do something? I have no idea, but either way, maybe they're knocking Barry out here because obviously he doesn't want another Barry seeing himself, and maybe he might pose as a previous Barry. We're going to have to wait and see there. And then, guys, we see the scene with Nora and Barry meeting old Wellsabard. Now, this is going to be very chilling. I think this is one of my most anticipated scenes, just because this is the Flash's most arch nemesis, quite literally the Reverse Flash. And Nora is living history, She's literally witnessing her father's greatest enemy right in front of her. And he's saying, well, things just got a lot more complicated and I can't wait to find out what they're discussing. You could honestly theorize whether it's about Cicada, Barry needs his help. Hey, weren't you here a few minutes ago maybe? Because this seems to be the same episode that they're traveling back to in season 5, but back to when Barry, I think it was season 2, episode 17, where Barry traveled back in time to learn about the Speed Force equation that Thorne could give him so he could get faster to defeat Zoom. And then he was handcuffed in that room, and then obviously Eobard Thorne in that scene had that same chair, so maybe Barry thought it was safest to travel back to that episode where he's already traveled back. Instead of complicating another time, he may as well travel back to the same episode he has traveled back in time to already. But yeah, that's getting a bit too timey-wimey. But yeah, very excited. I love the facial expressions on Barry and Nora here. They look very concerned, as they should be, because either way, how do you know how the Reverse Flash is going to react? Either way though, guys, that was the gist of the trailer. The only thing that they didn't show, and I think this is going to be the big twist, Todd Helping has already said that this mid-season finale naturally is going to have kind of a cliffhanger, which is going to make us itch to find out what is happening when it returns in January, I think. But that is obviously Sherloque goes to Iris to give, to tell her about his thoughts on Nora and the suspicions he has. And I've said this loads of times in previous videos, but obviously that is when Sherloque confronted Nora about how did you come to that decision on your own, or did you even come to that decision of your own? And that was punching the satellite. Like, how did she decide to do it at that exact moment out of all the great times she could have intervened in her parents' life? Now, obviously, they're not going to give us away the biggest twist in the trailer, but I would love to know what you think is going to happen when Sherloque goes to Iris about that. I personally think that Iris is going to be ignorant of it, or like just defensive, because she's now finally just forged a good relationship with her daughter, and she will not believe some Wells's theories that her daughter is secretly still hiding something from Team Flash. But if she does believe it, then kudos to Iris, because we all know that's kind of true. But maybe the key thing this episode as to verifying Sherloque's suspicions is Cecile, because as we know, Cecile can read minds, or like she's an empath or whatever, so she'll be able to tell even when maybe Iris is being ignorant of it, saying no, Sherloque, why would you bring this up, you're ruining like whatever. Finally, after this episode, Nora and Barry have got back safe and this is what you have to say. And then this is when Cecile is like, he's telling the truth. And this is when Nora's just like, oh shit. And then the speedster closing, and then the episode ends until next year. I don't know. Obviously not going to go exactly like that, but maybe amongst those lines. I would love to know what you guys think down in the comments below about the next week's episode. Everything I've discussed. Do you agree with anything I have to say? Do you have anything to add in terms of what I may have missed out? I do read every single comment. I might not be able to get back to every single one, but I love hearing your guys' thoughts on everything. Other than that, guys, links as always are in the description down below to my social media and other places like my Discord server, Patreon if you want to support the channel a little bit more. Of course, subscribe to this channel for more Flash videos weekly just like this. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you speedsters in the next video. Goodbye.